January 1st, 1861. We have entered upon the new year believing that strange and dreadful events are about to occur. Since the election of Mr. Lincoln, the greatest excitement has prevailed in Washington, and many predict war between the North and South. I've always thought war so interesting in history, but never dreamed there would be a real war in my lifetime. The churches are having prayer meetings constantly. I hope God will hear all those fervent prayers and war will be averted.
I put my knapsack on my back, rifle on my shoulder. I'm going away to Shiloh. There I'll be a soldier. Knapsack on my back, rifle on my shoulder. I'm going away to Shiloh. There I'll be a soldier.
April 1861. There is such excitement. The southern states are all seceding. Virginia is trying to hold on to the Union. I don't know whether I am a secessionist or not, but if this dear old state secedes, I shall too. Father is an old-line Whig and thinks the South is acting rashly. He says it is wrong to break up the United States, and at any rate, we ought to wait and see what Mr. Lincoln will do. There is a great deal of secession talk, especially among the ladies. Even the school children are excited. We young girls have a political club, and I read a paper on the situation at our last meeting. Really, I believe I am what they call on the fence, waiting to see what will turn up. I shall be scared to death if there is any fighting around here. I know I will not make a heron, for twixt you and me, dear diary, I shall be scared to death when the guns begin to shoot.
These are gloomy times, and seem to be growing darker and darker every day. Every mail brings us some bad news, news of disunion and war. 6 of the slave states have gone out of the Union, and events seem to be ripening very fast to take out the remaining 9. And is this Union to be utterly and forever destroyed? This glorious Union, the price of the blood of our fathers, is it to be abandoned as a thing of no worth? No, never give up the ship. Never, never.
May 17, 1861. Virginia has at last joined the Confederacy. Our military companies are drilling all the time. The riflemen and Mount Vernon Guards look splendid in their new gray uniforms. The Warren Rifles are here too, and Colonel Ball and his cavalry are quartered right opposite our house on the southwest corner of Duke and Payne Streets.
Union Private Spotswood Rice from hospital. My children, I take my pen in hand to write you a few lines to let you know that I have not forgot you and that I want to see you as bad as ever. Now, my dear children, I want you to be contented with whatever may be your lots. Be assured that I will have you if it costs me my life. On the 28th of the month, 800 white and 800 black soldiers expects to start up the river to Glasgow. And above that, they are to be generaled by a general that will give me both of you. Now, don't be uneasy, my children. I expect to have you. If Diggs don't give you up, this government will. And I feel confident that I will get you. Your Miss Kitty said that I tried to steal you. But I'll let her know that God never intended for a man to steal his own flesh and blood. I once thought that I had some respect for her. But now my respect is worn out, and I have no sympathy for slaveholders. And as for her Christianity, I expect the devil has such in hell. You tell her for me that she is the first Christian that I ever heard say that a man could steal his own child, especially out of bondage. Now, my dear children, I am going to close my letter to you. Give my love to all inquiring friends. And Cora and Mary, receive the greater part of it yourselves. And please, don't think hard of me for not sending you anything. Oh, my dear children, how I do want to see you. Spotswood Rice.
Basil Armstrong Thomason. Pa told us the war had commenced in Charleston some 2 weeks ago. Where and when will it end? And what will be the result? Freedom to the slaves? I think so. The South has commenced this war, and now I do not believe the North will ever listen to any terms of peace which do not include freedom to the slaves.
Spotswood Rice. Miss Kitty Diggs. I received a letter from Cora telling me that you say I tried to steal, to plunder Mary away from you. Now, I want you to understand that Mary is my child, and she is a God-given right of my own. And you may hold on to her as long as you can. But I want you to remember this one thing, that the longer you keep my child from me, the longer you will have to burn in hell, and the quicker you'll get there. For we are now making up about 1,000 black troops to come up through Glasgow. And when we come, woe be to the Copperhead rebels and to the slave-holding rebels. For we don't expect to leave them their root nor branch. But to think that we have children in the hands of you devils. We will try you the day we enter Glasgow. I want you to understand, Kitty Diggs, that wherever you and I meet, we are enemies to each other. I offered once to pay you $40 for my own child. But I am glad now that you did not accept it. You just hold on now as long as you can, and the worse it will be for you. You never in your life gave the children anything. Not anything whatever, not even $1 worth of expenses. Now you call my children your property. Not so. My children is my own, and I expect to get them. And when I get ready to come after Mary, I will have about me a power and an authority to bring her away and to execute vengeance on them that hold her. You will know how to talk to me. Yeah, I will assure that, and you will know how to talk right, too. I want you now to just hold on to her if you want to. If your conscience tells you that that's the road to go, well, then you go that road and see what it'll bring you to. Kitty Diggs, I have no fear about getting Mary out of your hands. This whole government gives cheer to me, and you cannot help yourself. Spotswood Rice.
John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. His soul is marching on. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. His soul is marching on. He's gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. He's gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. He's gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. His soul is marching on. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. His soul is marching on. They will hang Jeff Davis to a tree. They will hang Jeff Davis to a tree. They will hang Jeff Davis to a tree as they march along. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. As they march along. Three rousing cheers for the Union. Three rousing cheers for the Union. Three rousing cheers for the Union as we are marching on. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah. Glory, halle, hallelujah, as we are marching on.
May 1861. We are just like prisoners, not allowed to go outside the gates as Yankee soldiers are everywhere. All the Southern troops and men of a fighting age, all men of a fighting age except for a few who call themselves Union men have gotten away. It is very lonely for us. The town is under martial law, and we cannot go to Washington without a pass from the provost marshal. A company of 5th Massachusetts volunteers is quartered across the street. There are also troops from Pennsylvania and Illinois, and there's marching and drilling all the time. They have dress parade on a lot near the cemetery where there is an encampment. I wonder what our boys are doing since they were driven from their homes. Yesterday afternoon, a lieutenant from the quarters came to our gate and asked Father, who was sitting on the porch, if he would permit him to come in and read his papers and letters under our trees, as it was so warm and noisy in the barracks. Father said, "I cannot refuse so simple a request, but do not extend the privilege to others, as I have young daughters." He seemed very grateful and stretched out on the grass. Now, the lieutenant comes over every afternoon and invited us to go out to see the dress parade, which we were very glad to do to vary the monotony. The white tents looked beautiful, and we enjoyed the music and the drilling. It seems sad and strange that these troops should be here when so lately our Southern boys were camping and drilling. This evening, I was sitting at the window when the lieutenant appeared and said, "I heard you singing, and if you will pardon me for the intrusion, I would love to hear you sing again." I said, "There is only one song I care to sing, and that is Contraband." He replied, "I would love to hear Dixie." I was compelled to acknowledge that I did not have the music, and it could not be procured in Alexandria.
Basil Armstrong Thomason. All the talk today said we are involved in war. War is a dreadful thing, and all men ought to love and do all they could do to keep peace. Oh, that nations would learn to war no more.
June 4th, 1861. We were sitting talking with some of our neighbors this evening when the lieutenant was announced. Walking to me at the piano, he presented a roll of music saying, "I sent to Boston for Dixie and hope you will sing it for me." I thanked him and am glad to be able to sing again our dear old Southland song. When I opened the package, I found the Star-Spangled Banner also and asked the young lady to sing this sometimes written across it.
General Pickett to his fiancée, June 21, 1863. I never could quite enjoy being a conquering hero. No, my Sally, there is something radically wrong with my hurrahism. I can fight for a cause I know to be just, can risk my own life and the lives of those in my keeping without a thought of the consequences. But when we've downed the enemy, when we've conquered and won the victory, I don't want to hurrah. I want to go off all by myself and be sorry for them. I want to lie down on the grass, away from all human sound, and rest my soul and put my heart to rest. Get back something. I don't know what, but something I had that is gone from me. Something subtle and unexplainable. Something I never knew I had until it was gone. Until it was gone.
July 1861. The lieutenant asked me to make him a Confederate flag and he will call for it on his return. However, I am told that after Bull Run he took the shortest way to Washington, and I suppose he is on his way to Boston as his 6-month service has expired. I presume he will lay down his arms and fight no more against the cause in which his brother has enlisted. He certainly is a kind and courageous gentleman, and I am glad that he was one of those who escaped the bullets of the Southern Army.
Yesterday, my men were marching victoriously through the little town of Greencastle, Pennsylvania. The bands all playing our glorious, soul-inspiring Southern airs. The Bonnie Blue Flag, My Maryland, her bright smile haunts me still. And the soldiers all happy and hopeful, joyously keeping time to the music, many following it with their voices, and making up for the want of the welcome they were receiving in the enemy's country by cheering themselves and giving themselves a welcome. As the band, playing Dixie, passed a vine-bowered home, a young girl rushed out on the porch, waved an American flag, then either fearing that it might be taken from her or finding it too large and unwieldy, she fastened it around her as an apron and, taking hold of it on each side, waving it in defiance, called out with all of the strength of her girlish voice and all the courage her brave heart could muster, "Traitors! Traitors! Traitors, come and take this flag, the man of you who dares." Knowing that many of my men were from a part of the country that had been within the enemy's lines, and fearing lest some of them might forget their manhood, I took off my hat and bowed to her, saluted her flag, and turned, facing the men who felt and saw my unspoken order. And don't you know that they were all Virginians and didn't forget it? And that most every man lifted his cap and cheered the little maiden who, though she kept on waving her flag, ceased calling us traitors. Till finally, letting it drop in front of her, she cried out, "Oh, I wish I had a rebel flag. I'd wave that too." The picture of that little girl in the vine-covered porch beneath the purple morning glories, with their closed lips and bowed heads, waiting and saving their prettiness and bloom for the coming morn. Of course I thought of you, my beautiful darling. For the time that little green castle Yankee girl with her beloved flag was my own promised-to-be wife, my Sally, receiving from her soldier and her soldier's soldiers the reverence and homage due her. We left that little girl, waving her flag, gathered up in her arms, almost as if too sacred to be waved now that the enemy had done it reverence. Forever your devoted soldier, George Edward Pickett.
June 1863. Monday afternoon, I was sitting at the front window when a squad of soldiers came marching into the yard, and seeing me, the sergeant came up bearing a good-sized U.S. flag and said, "I am ordered to lace this flag over your door." As I was alone, I took it upon myself to reply, "You will have to climb on the roof to do so." "How shall I get up there?" he said. I directed him to a grape arbor at the back of the house, and in a few moments the stars and stripes were floating over the front door. When my stepmother, who though a native of Massachusetts is a rampant secessionist, returned later on and saw what had been done, she locked the front door, put the key in her pocket, and said, "That flag may float there, but we will use the back door."
Confederate Private Zachariah Benefield to his wife. Dear beloved wife, I seat myself this morning to drop you a few lines to let you know that I was well and hoping to find you enjoying the best of health. Jane, we saw a bad time marching through the snow and rain. We marched 5 days and it snowed and rained every day. We are camped at Zollicoffer, Tennessee, 11 miles from the Virginia line. They say that the Yankees is advancing on Richmond again and we have to go defend it. We are falling back out of East Tennessee. When you hear from me again, I will be in Virginia, I reckon. Jane, we are faring very bad for something to eat. They are feeding us on oat and rye and wheat mush. It's not boiled and the chaff and bran is all in it. A man can't hardly eat it. We don't get half enough of it. We steal a little and poach a little. Can't buy nothing, our money ain't no count. Jane, this is the 5th letter I have wrote to you. Got no answer yet. I don't know what to think. Jane, you said you would write to me every day. If you have written to me, I ain't got your letters. Jane, if you know how bad I want to hear from you, you would write me. I don't know how to write. If I get a letter, I would know better how to write. I must close, so no more at present. Only remains your truly husband until death. Write soon. Goodbye. When you see this, remember me, Zachariah Benefield.
Our lovelorn Private Benefield would have known the next tune. It was a song known by soldiers on both sides of the conflict, so much so that some generals banned the singing of Lorena because it was too distracting. It made the men think of their sweethearts at home. So this is called Lorena.
Slowly by
thank God. Of life, this is so small a part. 'Tis dust to dust beneath the sod. But there, up there, 'tis heart to heart. But there, up there, 'tis heart to heart. Thank you.
Rebecca Barrett's letter to her son. My dear son, it is with pleasure I now embrace the opportunity of penning you a few lines to inform you that I am received your most welcome letter, for I had despaired of your writing. We are both sick. Pap is prostrated on his bed and has been so for 3 months and 3 weeks. He got a little better, but it did not last long. I am very sorry that you have enlisted again, for I wanted to see you once more. You say you will send me some money. Do so, my son. For God's sake, I am needy at this time. The doctors are so dear that it takes all you can make to pay their bill. I work when I'm able, but that is so seldom. God knows what I will do this winter, for I don't. Everything is 2 prices, and 1 meal costs as much as 3 used to cost. When the rich grumble, God help the poor. For it is a true saying that poverty is no disgrace, but very unhandy. And I find it very unhandy, for if ever a poor soul was poverty-stricken, I am one. And my son, if you ever thought of your poor old mother, God grant me you may think of her now, for this is a needy time. No more, but remain your mother, Rebecca Barrett.
February 1864. Several boys who were too young to go before have gotten through the lines and joined the Confederate Army. I hate to see them go, as I feel the cause is already lost.
We like to play the following medley of fiddle tunes from the Civil War period, partly as a narrative. It kind of follows along the path of the soldiers marching to the battlefield and going into the fray, into the battle, and the gunfire and the cannons booming, and the awful battle. And then as the smoke clears after the battle, the awful scene that is left behind. This is Washington's march and Bonaparte's retreat.
the diary of Northerner Carolyn Seabury. The intense heat of today and the exciting scenes with which the town is filled have left me exhausted. Too much for sleep, but with no one to share my thoughts save my pen and paper. Crowded together were about 800, eating everything, with the same clothes on in which they fought more than a week ago. Haggard, filthy beyond description, a large proportion of them with vacant, expressionless faces, with wounds whose only dressing since the battle has been the blessed rains from heaven, their hollowed cheeks and glaring eyes mutely asking relief. The good face of the doctor was seen here and there, he trying to bring some order out of utter confusion. The ladies were asked to distribute some nourishment. Here was a mere boy, grasping a piece of bread. In the next cot was a man of middle age, large frame, with hands which bore the marks of hard labor. He had battled with the world in times of peace and had conquered. War had taken him from home, and now wasting sickness had destroyed the strong man. His dying words my friend could not understand. Knowing how often I had listened for the last whisper, she called me, telling him I could hear them. He roused all his strength left and whispered, "I want my body sent to my wife. I promised her. Tell her I'm willing to go. My pay is due for 6 months. She'll need it." We passed the bunk of one tall, black-eyed young man, wasted to a skeleton, but retaining the marks of a true gentleman in his wan face and manner. I had a rose in my hand and involuntarily laid it on his pillow. He smiled and turned towards it. The nurse said he'd been talking that morning early about the sweet shrubs in his mother's yard and wondering if they had bloomed. He could only say, "Thank you, I love them." I told him that he should have fresh ones every day. When we passed his place that evening, it was vacant. He lived only 6 hours after we saw him, but kept hold of the flower, the nurse said, even in death. As the surgeon walked on with us, a light-haired, sunburned boy of about 17 raised up and said, "Doctor, don't you know me? I'm so glad to see you." In vain the doctor tried to think who the boy was. At last, when told, the doctor said, wiping tears from his eyes, "I've known that boy from a baby. His father is a wealthy planter and he an only child. What would his poor mother say to see him now? I thank God no responsibility for this war rests on my shoulders." In one corner was one giving orders for battle, his eyes glaring wildly about. Now and then he would level an imaginary gun and exclaim, "There's one more damn Yankee gone." He had been 3 days and nights thus raving. No one knew him, and he had nothing about which he could be identified about his person. The poor fellow screamed to Mrs. Long, "There, Mother, I knew you would come and see me," and then made the most violent exertions to come to her, but his feet were tied. Some poor mother may be grieving now for him, longing for some tidings of her dear boy, and ere long, he will fill a grave over which will be placed on a plain board, unknown. A pretty little curly-headed drummer boy looked so wishfully at us, I asked the doctor about him. "He can't speak a word of English," was the doctor's reply. "He's a French boy from New Orleans." I said only, "Avez-vous une mère?" when the child sprang up and commenced an autobiography at once. His mother was in France. She had sent him to an uncle in New Orleans for a business education. He had run away, was 15 years old, but very delicate. "Oh, mademoiselle, ma pauvre mère," he would often repeat. I told him I would send him a pretty French story to read, and he would soon get better. His tears dried away soon, and he seemed quite happy as I said, "Bonjour, je reviens une autre fois. I'll see you next time."
January 1865. The Union families are having fine times. There are dances and dinners and plays every day. A hop is given every Thursday evening at the Magnolia, to which I have been invited, but Father objected to my going. I really should like to go if I could, for I love dancing. If this war ever ends and our boys come home, I will make up for all these deprivations by dancing to my heart's content. The news from the South is exceedingly grave. General Grant is concentrating Union forces around Richmond, trying to force our army to surrender. The South will have to give up. Money is all gone and provisions almost exhausted. My sister's right, the conditions have become unbearable. How I wish they could get through the lines and come home. There are hundreds of our boys in northern prisons, and we are kept busy preparing and sending boxes to them. There seems to be no prospect of peace. Our brave soldiers in tatters and half-starved are holding on like grim death, although they know they are outnumbered. The 2 boys who recently joined the Confederate Army have been killed. R.W. had his head shot off in the first battle. The Union families here are gayer than ever, feeling so sure that victory is near. We go out very little, but have evenings of music at home, and sometimes a drive or a horseback ride. I spent several days in Washington last week, and for the first time in my life attended the opera. While we were waiting in the lobby for the carriage, the President and Mrs. Lincoln came out and stood right next to us. Mrs. Lincoln was beautifully dressed in a heavy white silk with rosebuds embroidered over it. She wore enormous hoops and had red roses in her hair. She's quite good-looking, but seemed tired and dull. The President is the homeliest man I have ever seen. He is tall and gaunt and looked so weary and careworn that I felt sorry for him.
You've heard Terrence to my right tonight reading the letters of Basil Armstrong Thomason of Stokes County, North Carolina. We're very happy tonight that we have Basil Thomason's great grandson playing bass for us. That's Jared Creason of Falls Church.
Confederate Private John Garibaldi to his wife. Dear wife, I received your kind and affectionate letters yesterday, which afforded a great deal of satisfaction in learning that you was well. As we were going to Romney, we passed where the Yankees had been, and I saw near all the houses had been burned up by them. The hogs stuck with the bayonet. Some shot the cattle, and the sheep were treated likewise. As we were coming from Romney by another road altogether, we met with an equal destruction. They killed an old shoemaker and then burned him up in his house. At another place, again, they killed another man who had a wife and 3 or 4 small children. and afterward they set fire to the house, driving his wife and children out of the door. The lady tried to go in the house to try and take out some furniture so it wouldn't be burned up, but they would not let her, so everything was burned up with the corpse of her husband. As we were coming by, some found some of his bones in pieces, and they put them in their pocket as relics. As soon as that woman saw our brigade coming, she began to cry, thinking that maybe we were Yankees. I shall finish my letter by giving you my best respects, and to all of the family also, and remain your affectionate lover until death, John Garibaldi.
Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. We'll give him a hearty welcome and hurrah, hurrah. The men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies say we'll all turn out and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. The old church bell will peal with joy, hurrah, hurrah. To welcome home our darling boy, hurrah, hurrah. The village lads and lassies sing with roses they will strew the way it will all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. Get ready for the Jubilee, hurrah, hurrah. We'll give the hero green ring, hurrah, hurrah. The glory is ready now to place upon his loyal brow. It will all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. Let love and friendship on their day, hurrah, hurrah. Their choicest pleasures and display, hurrah, hurrah. And then each one performs a part to fill with joy the warrior's heart. It will all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
Samuel Cabell, private in the 55th Massachusetts Infantry. Dear wife, I have enlisted in the Army. I am now in the state of Massachusetts, but before this letter reaches you, I will be in North Carolina. And though great is the present national difficulties, yet I look forward to a brighter day when I shall have the opportunity of seeing you in the full enjoyment of freedom. Now, I would like to know if you are still in slavery. If you are, it will not be long before we shall have crushed the system that now oppresses you. For in the course of 3 months, you shall have your liberty. Great is the outpouring of colored people that is now rallying with the hearts of lions against that very curse that has separated you and me. Yet, we shall meet again. And oh, what a happy time that will be when this ungodly rebellion shall be put down and the curses of our land is trampled under our feet. I am a soldier now, and I shall use my utmost endeavor to strike at the rebellion and the heart of this system that has so long kept us in chains. Remain your own affectionate husband, Until death, Samuel Cabell.
April 1865. Thank God the war is over. General Lee has surrendered. The cause so bravely fought for is lost, and with aching hearts and shattered hopes, the few of us who are left can return to their homes and commence another battle, that for existence. How many will find their homes have been confiscated or destroyed and their families scattered? A Union man rode by last evening and called out to me as I was seated on the porch. Have you heard the news? Lee has surrendered. I felt like hurling a rock at him. No gentleman would be guilty of exulting over a defeated cause to one who sympathized with it.
My love returned from war today. How fondly I recall his charms. I see them no more, they passed away, along with his fellows in arms. To dead men's hollow my love did come on his way back home to me. In dead men's hollow my love did stop to buy a golden ring, or ring, to buy a golden ring. The north and south, the other two best, did wage a fearful war. Oh, how I wish they'd been east and west to meet one another no more. Our valley was the next battleground for people with no place to go. They drink and gamble all the day, no regard for their mortal souls. To dead men's hollow they did come to squander their fortunes all. In dead men's hollow they will die, casualties of the fall. They're casualties of the fall. My love went to market, his gun in hand. He knew it would be rough. Past saloons and brothels, my love did trek to the market of Old Mill Ross. A drunken soldier wandered out, his hand on his pistol and sling. He shot my love without a thought as I did cheerfully sing. To dead men's hollow my love must go to peddle his squash and corn. In dead men's hollow my love will die, and I will forevermore mourn. Yes, I will forever mourn.
From General Nathan Bedford Forrest's farewell speech to his men. It is a clear fact that we are beaten. We would be foolish to try to fight further. The government which we tried to establish is at an end. Civil war, such as you have just passed through, naturally causes feelings of bitterness and hatred. We must put these feelings aside. Whatever your responsibilities may be, meet them like men. You have been good soldiers. You can be good citizens.
From the diary of Anne S. Froebel. We hear there has been some great trouble with the regiments around Washington. Some of them were in a high state of revolt and tumult, and the colonel went in among the men with his sword drawn and was shot down instantly, and his body pinned to the ground with bayonets. And 3 or 4 of the other officers were killed before the riot was quelled. This circumstance was mentioned to our guard. "Oh," he said, "that was nothing. Such scenes are of almost daily occurrence."
Probably everyone here tonight has been to Dead Men's Hollow and maybe not even realized it. Today it has a different name, this neighborhood. Does anyone know the name of Dead Men's Hollow today? Roslyn, that's right. In the song we did, the last song we did, My Love Returned from War Today, we refer to Bill Ross. Well, Roslyn was once Ross's land. At any rate, today it's high-rises and Starbucks and stuff. But when the Civil War ended, it is not a place you would go unless you had a number of rounds of ammunition in your pocket and a couple of friends at your side. We're going to tell you about Dead Men's Hollow the way it used to be right now.
1865. Our boys of the 17th Regiment have returned, those who are left. See, McKnight lost his right arm. I just adore that empty sleeve. He wears it bravely, knowing he lost his arm in defense of Southern honor. Many others are wounded and scarred. It is good to know there will be no more fighting.
Anna Froebel. We walked to Mr. Fairfax's today to try to get someone to cut a little grass for hay, and was shocked to hear there was none to cut. Mr. F. says the northern officers have stolen all the horses in the country and now have to steal enough to support them, and all the grass that the black cow has not eaten has been cut away and fed to them. Oh, me, where will our losses end? What a prospect before us for next winter.
$1,300 died that day. It took 10 good men just to dig the grave. They buried them shallow, they buried them deep. They buried them next to Dry Run Creek. And their mamas cried. Oh, my Lord, how the mamas cried. Well, they weren't just blue and they weren't just gray. Death took no sides when it came that day. They laid them out side by each. They placed no stone at their head or feet. And their mamas cried. Oh, my Lord, how the mamas cried. When the digging was through, they gathered round. A lonesome dove made the only sound. They said their prayers, got to their feet. They left their friends at Dry Run Creek. And their mamas cried. Oh, my Lord, how the mamas cried. The war had been over for about a week. The word hadn't gotten to Dry Run Creek. They fought and died right to the end. A battle that should have never been. And the mamas cried. Oh, my Lord, how the mamas cried. And the mamas cried. Oh, my Lord, how the mamas cried.
May 1865. My sisters are here, and the stories of their experiences during the 4 years of war would fill volumes. Booth, the assassin of the president, passed through Cloverdale, my brother-in-law's plantation, and sent for him to dress his wounds. He was not at home, else he would have responded not knowing who it was. I went with a friend to Washington to see the review of the Grand Army before it was mustered out. It was a magnificent sight. Thousands and thousands of soldiers in bright uniforms, with many bands playing patriotic airs, made a scene never to be forgotten. Of course, I could not feel any enthusiasm or join in the cheering, although my escort was a federal officer. My thoughts were with those others who had fought just as bravely and lost, and of those fallen ones sleeping peacefully in the fields of battle.
Letty Barnes to her husband. My dear husband, I have just this evening received your letter. You can imagine how anxious and worried I had become about you. And so it seems that all can get home once in a while to see and attend to their family but you. I really do think it looks hard. Your poor old mother is here working like a dog to keep soul and body together, and here am I with 2 little children and myself to support and not one soul or $1 to help us. I do think if your officers could see us, they would certainly let you come home and bring us a little money. As you receive this, let me know when you are coming home, and believe me as ever, your devoted wife, Letty Barnes.
In the grim and final hour of the war between the states, he'd had enough of dying, all the grief that he could take. From the Appomattox courthouse, where the deed was sadly done, no place left for him to go but home. He walked all the way home to Southampton County, carried all he owned, tried to forget, wearing sadness like a mantle for the friends he lost in vain. He walked all the way home to start his life again. And in the end he knew the reason why so many have been lost. For years to come the fallen would sleep beneath the cross, and what he held in angry silence time could never turn away. Just the saddest price he'd ever pay. He walked all the way home to Southampton County, carried all he owned, tried to forget, wearing sadness like a mantle for the friends he lost in vain. He walked all the way home to start his life again. When he stopped to take some water from a little roadside place, a pretty southern widow sadly looked into his face. And as they talked a while, his blue eyes seemed to ease her broken heart. One day he went back and took her home. They walked all the way home to Southampton County, carried all they owned, and tried to forget, wearing sadness like a mantle for the friends they lost in vain. They walked all the way home to start their lives again. They walked all the way home to start their lives again.
He has only some Confederate paper money, but it is entirely useless to him. He is hoping and expecting to get an engineership on some railroad, and hopes it may not be very long until he has an opportunity of coming home to us in Virginia.
After 4 years of arduous service, marked by unsurpassed courage and fortitude, the Army of Northern Virginia has been compelled to yield to overwhelming numbers and resources. I need not tell the survivors of so many hard-fought battles who have remained steadfast to the last that I have consented to this result through no distrust of them, but feeling that valor and devotion could accomplish nothing that would compensate for the loss that would have attended the continuance of the contest. I determined to avoid the useless sacrifice of those whose past services have endeared them to their countrymen. By the terms of the agreement, officers and men can return to their homes and remain until exchanged. You will take with you the satisfaction that proceeds from consciousness of duty faithfully performed, and I earnestly pray that a merciful God will extend to you his blessing and protection. With an unceasing admiration of your constancy and devotion to your country, and a grateful remembrance for your kind and generous consideration for myself, I bid you an affectionate farewell. R.E. Lee, General.
The gentleman who had a hand in writing the song we performed, Lorena, also contributed to the writing of the next song. It's the well-known hymn, In the Sweet By and By, so if you know it, we welcome you to sing it with us.
There's a land that is fairer than day.
you so much to Vander, to Jason, to Joni up in the sound booth. Thanks to Arlington County Parks and Rec. Thanks to the Guillotine Theater for building this with us. Thanks to all of you for coming out tonight and spending some of your very sweaty July 13th with us. We're Dead Man's Hollow. We're so happy you came out. Thank you so much.
Like